Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. So, let's talk Perilous Pursuit and Traps and Tribulations. There are some very cool things about both of these episodes. These are from Forces of Destiny Season 2, episodes 13 and 14. Perilous Pursuit is actually, for all intents and purposes, a deleted scene from The Force Awakens, as opposed to Shuttle Shock, which depicted Rose and Finn and BB-8 in their, in transit to Cantonica. That was not a deleted scene or anything like that. That was never going to be depicted on screen in The Last Jedi. But this particular scene might have been depicted in The Force Awakens and was deleted. So if you'll recall, when they were on Starkiller Base, Rey and Finn at one point were separated from Han and Chewie because they were trying to get into the thermal oscillator building, and there was some, off-site junction building where Rey had to make a couple of cool modifications to break Han and Chewie into that thermal oscillator building, and then Rey and Finn had to make their way back to that building so that they could rejoin Han and Chewie. Well, on their way, they were going to get pursued by First Order snowtroopers in Snowspeeders, and we get to see how that scene would have played out, or at least how it could have played out, and the help of it being animated as opposed to it being live action, with CGI and all. Maybe it would have been a little bit different, but in the movie, we actually just see Finn and Rey arriving at the thermal oscillator building, and you can kind of see part of what they used to get there, which was that First Order transport, that Snowspeeder, or what they call a Snowspeeder. It's not a T-47, all right? That's okay. It would have been cool, but no, it's a different kind of thing. Anyway, so we get to see the pursuit of First Order snowtroopers and how Rey and Finn managed to get away from them. Finn was driving at first, and, Finn, not so good behind the wheel. So once Rey took over and Finn started shooting, that worked a lot better. Anyway, so that was Perilous Pursuit. And then Traps and Tribulations brings back Mark Hamill, and there's a bit of bittersweetness to this because it's Luke and Leia, and, it's, of course, not Carrie Fisher because Carrie Fisher had since passed away before this was recorded, so that's a bit of a shame, unfortunately, but it's Luke and Leia after the Battle of Endor, and they're having a conversation before Ewoks show up, and Leia says that it was a good thing that the Ewoks helped out because otherwise the ground war wouldn't have gone so well. And I gotta say, I know it's still... it's still August, but I think that qualifies for the Star Wars understatement of the year already. I think we have a hands-down winner. A whole legion of troops, and it was just the Pathfinders and Han and Leia and Chewie and 3PO and R2 down there. I mean, it wouldn't have gone so well. I mean, it wouldn't have gone at all. There wouldn't have been a ground war of any kind at that point. So, understatement of the year goes to Leia in Traps and Tribulations for that one. Anyway, so Wicket and Nisa is back again for another installment, show up and are making a lot of noise. And it turns out there's a Gore Axe on the loose. And for the Gore Axe, you have to go all the way back to Caravan of Courage. Yes, really. So the giant humanoid creature that was the villain in Caravan of Courage, the TV Ewok movie with the two kids, Sindel and Mace. Yeah, I remember Mace. That's where that name came from. So the Gore Axe is stomping around, I guess, maybe all the fighting got it agitated and it just started to see what was going on. And so Luke and Leia have to help the Ewoks with one of their traps, which is basically a giant swinging log to deal with the Gore Axe. And interestingly enough, Leia is sawing ropes with a spear handed to her by one of the Ewoks, and she's like, do you guys ever sharpen these things? So that in itself is kind of funny because you just imagine the Ewoks using dull spears on all the Imperials that they're killing, so they're just making it even worse and more torturous for the Imperials when they're attacking them. Like, that's... Ewoks, they're just cruel, ruthless little murder bears. Anyway, so they can't get the ropes sawed off quickly enough, and Luke throws his lightsaber up to Leia, so we get to see Leia wielding a lightsaber, which is always fun. And after the Gore Axe has been knocked off a cliff and is just shaking its head in the mud and, clearly okay and dazed, but, out of the picture, basically, we see Luke and Leia standing on the side of the cliff looking down with Nisa and Wicket, and Leia's holding the lightsaber in that sort of backward lightsaber holding stance that we see Ahsoka holding her lightsabers with sometimes, not like almost straight up, but sort of out back. And that in itself I thought was a rather interesting take as well, just the hint of what kind of lightsaber style Leia might have adopted had she actually worked with a lightsaber. I don't know, that in itself was a pretty intriguing little still shot for me as well. So there you go. Perilous Pursuit, a deleted scene from The Force Awakens being made real in Forces of Destiny, and Traps and Tribulations, where we get to see Leia wielding a lightsaber and see the Gore Axe being brought back into canon. Yeah, it was actually mentioned in Ultimate Star Wars in 2015, so, technically recanonized a couple of years ago, but now we actually get to see the thing moving around, so I think that's a little bit more significant by comparison. And that is going to do it for our Forces of Destiny episode check-in today. Over on the audio version of the podcast, yep, Last Jedi Trivia again, so do check that out, sw7x7.com/iTunes, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. But for now, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.